There's something that sets all of us apart from the best players in the world. And I'm going to show you that in this game right here, which will not only be very enjoyable, but you'll also learn a huge amount. You're gonna like it so much that you'll probably want to watch it over and over again once you finish this video. Let's get into the game, which started with white playing e4 and black playing c5, the Sicilian defense. Careful, it's not important, okay? Which opening is played? In fact, you can play 10,000 openings against the king's pawn here. What's really important is what comes next. Knight f3, knight c6, the classical Sicilian variation, d4, a theoretical move, pawn takes pawn, and knight takes pawn. And there are many variations of the Sicilian here. In this case, in this game, black opted for the move g6, which is called the dragon variation. Okay? As I said, I'm going through this a bit faster because it's not the main point. What follows is much more important, and we'll focus on that. Knight c3, bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6. So far, we're seeing a completely normal development. The bishop moves to c4, successfully developing white's very last minor piece, and black decides to castle kingside. White continues with a quite interesting move that's very typical for these specific positions. What I'm about to tell you is a tip you can apply in all your games, no matter which opening you play. That's why they're so important. Here, the white player realizes that one of their pieces isn't defended by anything, okay? This bishop is, the knight is, the knight is, but this bishop isn't defended. That's exactly why he plays bishop b3, so that all of his pieces are well defended. That prevents many nasty surprises later on in the game, because sometimes there are tactics we don't notice, and we end up losing that piece just because it was left undefended. So bishop b3 is a super interesting move. It's just as interesting as black's move knight g4. It threatens this bishop, but this knight is being completely given away. However, by moving this knight, the bishop is revealed, attacking this knight. So with knight g4, it's true, white can capture this knight, but the queen would stop defending the knight on d4. So the game continued with knight takes g4, and black followed up with knight takes d4. It has simply been a straightforward trade of the knights. White moved the queen to h4, and now the best part of the game begins, because after queen a5, a completely theoretical and natural move in the Sicilian, black tries to develop the queen to a5. Why? Because this way it points directly at the king. Normally, white tries to castle long here. In this game, they opted for castling short, okay? And here comes the most interesting part of the video, or rather, where the most interesting part begins. Black plays bishop f6. They threaten the queen. Very well, this queen could come here, it's true. It could embed itself. That's what the great players think, Pay attention to this approach. However, black could attack it again, the queen would have to move, they could attack it again. Well, this would be a fairly DRA-wish position, right? Let's call it a pretty clear draw. Why? Because if this queen comes through here, it would repeat. If the queen moves back, it doesn't seem like a good move, because d5 could be played while discovering this queen. This pawn couldn't be defended, as it would be attacked by the other pawn. This knight would have to come toward the center. Well, it would be a fairly equal position. If the queen comes over here, watch what could happen. Queen sacrifice on c3, pawn takes, and then this knight would jump here, giving check and capturing the queen on the next move. Again, after these exchanges, it would be a very equal position with a slight advantage for black due to the pawn structure. They'd have two doubled pawns here, and another two doubled pawns here. Especially these two would be isolated, and black's bishop pair could perform very well. That's why here, let's put this back as it was. In this move here, when black plays bishop f6, the white player spent 40 minutes thinking about what to do. In fact, black offered a draw to white here. And here comes the big difference between all normal players, the mortals, and the best players in the world. Do you know what the white player did here? It's probably the move you'd least expect. Queen takes bishop. Don't tell me you're not enjoying this video. Leave a like because, as I said, now the best part for white begins. How can it be that white sacrifices their queen in exchange for just a bishop? Here, black knows they're going to lose this knight, so what they do is play knight e2 check. A good move. Why? Because if they're going to lose the knight, at least they lose it here and push back one of white's pieces and then capture the queen. Very well. We find ourselves in a position where white has given up the queen in exchange for two minor pieces. Why is this possible? Very well. You should know that this position is fairly equal and the engines prefer black. But that's in it. Don't think that black has an abysmal advantage. What does all this do? While white has managed to give up their queen in exchange for what? Some very strong pieces. And you're about to see it right now. This is how the world's best do it, so that their pieces truly work as a team. If we can get all those pieces to act in harmony, that is, to play together, you'll get so much more value, and you'll win many more games. Let me explain how they did it here. Or rather, how the player with the white pieces did it. Pay attention because he didn't sacrifice the queen because he saw a mate or to gain more material. No, no, no. He sacrificed the queen because that way his pieces would become much more active. The knight is already coming to this d5 square, which is a very important square. Why? Because there's no black pawn on either the e-file or the c-file. Great news for placing a knight on the d-file then, because a pawn will never be able to kick it out. So rook 8 and knight d5. As you can see, this knight is threatening the f6 point with drastic consequences. Rook 6 seems mandatory to come and defend, and now white continues to use their pieces together. He places the bishop, also aiming at this point here, forcing the opponent to have all their pieces on defense. No matter how much better the opponent's pieces are, if they have to defend a single pawn, those pieces are worthless. As you can see, he has an extra queen, but that queen isn't doing anything at all for now, while white's bishops and knight are playing perfectly. And not only that, but now it's time to bring in the remaining rook, which wasn't doing anything at all. d6 to develop this bishop, which is the last one they have left, right? If they don't develop this bishop, they won't be able to develop this rook either, and having extra material won't help. And this is where white starts thinking on an even higher level. I'm going to bring my rooks into the attack too, and they're thinking with common sense. Where am I attacking? At the 5-6 point. So that's where I'm going. I'm not overcomplicating things. I move the rook to the third rank, where it's set to reach the f3 square, bishop d7, rook f3, and 3 pieces are already attacking this point. The bishop tries to sneak in by attacking the other rook. And here, we could move the rook, obviously, or attack a more valuable piece. That's what we should always do when something of ours is attacked. In this case, white played bishop c3, attacking a queen that has to retreat. The queen retreats to defend this point, but a queen isn't a true defender. Why? Let me explain. If we attack with minor pieces, you can't defend with the queen, since she's worth much more than those pieces, and you obviously won't trade her. That's why white plays knight takes f6 with great judgment, and now some really powerful things are being threatened. If black captures this rook, they'll be in quite a bad spot, and let me explain why. Quite simply, it could continue with, for example, knight g4, threatening this discovered check. This is it, black captures, right? Rook takes knight on g4, discovered check, the king would have to move, and then let's assume he comes over here. Okay, when he moves. Then, quite simply, we could continue with bishop takes e6, the rook would also enter, we've recovered the rook, and this would be a complete disaster for the black pieces. I invite you to look for it yourselves, so I don't waste your time and we spend just the right amount of time. The black pieces play this wonderful move, which, yes, is an interesting move, bishop e2. However, it doesn't prevent white's plans. Why do they play bishop e2? Simply to eliminate this rook, which really is the important rook, the one that's threatening the entry. This rook over here does absolutely nothing. But here, the white pieces do the following. Knight takes pawn. Wonderful move. Check. The king has to move away. If the king were to capture this knight, it would be a very bad move, because rook takes f7 would follow, and the entry of the two bishops, besides capturing this rook on the next move, would be completely lethal. That's why the king, instead of capturing the knight, moves to g8, a much better move. The rook moves to h3. Why? Because they want to enter through the back rank, trying to give some kind of checkmate, for example through here, and entering through here at this moment would win the queen. That's why rook h3 is a very interesting move, and black decides to wisely cut the diagonal with their rook. Logically, for black, you see it, right? They'd love to give up their rook to eliminate this very good bishop that controls all the black squares and the very important diagonal. However, white goes one step further. Many of you, what would you do? Well, I'm going to capture this rook and I win a rook. No, I care more about this bishop and it's blocking the diagonal. So I play f4 and force this rook to leave the diagonal. In this case, white captured over here. Many of you would say, well, I'll capture theirs. But no, much better, without a doubt, to capture the bishop. And now we continue with the threat to the rook, which if it moves, perfect, and if it doesn't move, even better. Here, black plays this move, rook c8, keeping in mind something very important. The most important piece now for white, or one of the most important, is this bishop. So I'm going to threaten it, and if they're careless, I'm going to capture it. That's why we must not let them capture it from us. Black continues attacking, and now white continues with their plan. Knight g5, rook c7, and now the definitive move to get the game on track, bishop takes f7, practically forcing black to take here, right? And now, instead of capturing this rook, a wonderful move by white, rook h8, check. Logically, it must be captured. You see it, right? It must be captured because if he comes here, for example, we would win the queen. See? Because this rook is completely pinned. That is, this rook must be captured, and what a beautiful move now. Knight takes f7, check. I take the queen and I take the rook. I take it all. And the game continues like this. Knight takes queen, rook takes pawn, knight c6, rook takes pawn check, king e2. And white won the game because black resigned. 2 pieces against a rook is superior, plus an extra pawn. A clearly superior advantage, so black has to resign. As you can see, here white has optimized their pieces to a totally spectacular level. You should probably watch this video again. You can do it as many times as you need. In fact, I'll be delighted for you to watch the video as many times as you need. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like below. I also have a gift for all of you. If you subscribe to my newsletter, I'll give you a digital book totally for free. Besides, once you're subscribed to the newsletter, you know that every Sunday I send you lessons by email completely for free. So don't hesitate. Save this video, give it a like, and if you want a little more, subscribe to the newsletter, which is completely free and you'll definitely like it a lot. I hope you like this video a lot too, and we'll see each other tomorrow as always if you're a subscriber in the next new video. Goodbye now.